Okay, how's everybody doing, folks? We might just give it a minute or two. We're still waiting on a few people to join, so we'll kick off there in the next minute or so. There's good numbers attending here at the moment, so we'll just give it 1 or 2 minutes there, Ger and John, and we'll kick off. Okay, so we have plenty on board at the moment, so we'll kick off the session. Good afternoon, everybody. Mark Fee is my name. I'm Business Development Manager here at NEXA for Ireland and EMEA. And I'd like to welcome everybody to today's webinar and thank you all for joining. We're delighted to co-host the webinar today with our partners in PlantQuest, and we hope this will be a very informative session. So I suppose we'll get started. I'd like to introduce our two speakers today, Mr. Ger Carton, CEO of PlantQuest, and Mr. John Cummins, our VP here at NEXA. Ger, I might ask you to tell us a bit about yourself and your experiences.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks a million, Mark. Yeah, look, my name is Ger Carton. I'm director of PlantQuest. PlantQuest is about 6 years old. My background is primarily in asset management in oil and gas and pharmaceutical. Very deep background in instrumentation, engineering, control systems, and a bit of business too. And at PlantQuest and myself, we kind of work across the full life cycle of the assets in an organization, and we built a solution to really help advance the digital management of assets in an organization. And we work with trusted partners like John in NEXA to get our solution rolled out smoothly within organizations. And I'll just hand you over to John there now.
Thanks, Ger. John Cummins here, Vice President at NEXA. I've spent my entire career in the life science sector. Pretty much I've had a little bit of exposure to medical device and semiconductor and food and bev, but life science is really where the rubber meets the road for me. So started as a technician. I was a technician for about 10 years in the calibration and instrumentation space. We've got a lot of exposure to maintenance, operations, capital projects, and especially CMMS and master data management. I founded NEXA in 2015, so we're 9 years in business now this June, and really our biggest change this year is our single source solution, which encompasses a lot of different services under one umbrella that manages the master data from the very inception of a project all the way through to operational readiness, handover, and even beyond that as well. So we'll touch a little bit on that later.
That's great. Thanks very much, guys. So today's agenda, the guys will speak about the challenges in asset and maintenance management. Ger will talk about PlantQuest asset mapping and location platform. John will talk about NEXA's new NS3 CapEx project model. They'll speak about the drivers of innovation in enterprise and asset management, both companies' impact stories, and Ger will talk about some of PlantQuest's upcoming webinars. So we're in for a half an hour. We'll have a Q&A at the end, and if anybody has any questions, they can pop them into the chat and we'll respond to them at the end of the webinar. So I suppose, guys, the challenges in asset and maintenance management.
Yes, I suppose I'll start off there just to talk about data management really and integration. I've probably spent time on over 50 sites globally, everywhere from San Diego to Singapore and in between. And one thing we see frequently, if not almost always, is poor master data management. A lack of standards for how the data is managed, a lack of overall good engineering practices to the data as well, and therefore a lot of issues coming with KPIs, reporting, a lot of manual effort that goes in, and probably more resources put on this than are needed if the data management was in a good situation. Also, a lot of systems that aren't properly integrated or haven't been validated or don't transfer the data properly between each other, causing a lot of issues as well. And again, a lot of manual and rework. A big part of this as well in terms of resource availability is, in terms of turnover, in terms of hybrid models now, in terms of remote working, the importance of data being good means people can get trained a lot easier. They understand where the data is, what it represents. We can report a lot better if people are in a remote or a hybrid fashion, or even having global outlooks. Having good data and providing that the key resources across the globe, or even on the local level of the site, is very, very important. And also replacing a lot of that tacit knowledge that exists, and we all depend on. I think every site I've ever been on depends on some level of tacit knowledge. The more we can remove the requirement for reliance on that tacit knowledge, the more efficiently and effectively we'll operate our sites. And of course, look at the life science space, highly regulated industry. The amount of times I've seen, I check every month on the FDA's website for inspection findings, and the amount of times data comes into it, bad policies or procedures or guidelines around data management, calibration data, maintenance data, things not being done the way they're supposed to be done. That all comes from a level of data mismanagement, I would say. I'll pass over to Jerry now to just talk about the next couple of things.
Yeah, I suppose probably similar to you, John. One of the biggest challenges that we're seeing from our clients and just from the market in general is equipment reliability and uptime. Especially in pharma, but in other industries too. A lot of the products that we make, we all operate in highly regulated and very high demand industries, and there's more and more demand for the products that we're working on, that we're helping create, and they need to get more product out the door. So it's having the equipment in a condition that it's up more than it's not is super critical. And just to touch on what John was saying earlier, and to go a bit deeper, like the tacit knowledge piece and the worker turnover, we feel is really critical here, because if you hire a resource maintenance or facilities resource within your organization, they have 90% of the knowledge that they need to do the job, if they're trained adequately, which they should be. But it's that tacit knowledge. They're coming into your plant with pretty much zero tacit knowledge of the systems, the processes, the geography, the culture, generally how you work within your organization. And that's very, very hard to impart quickly onto somebody. Like if you lose somebody who's been in your plant 20 years, you're losing a lot more than a maintenance resource. You're losing a whole lifetime of knowledge. So really having a way to distill and harness that tacit knowledge is a big challenge for organizations. And where we see the twin challenge with that, and what really is a big challenge to harness that knowledge, is the delay and the reticence to adopt new technologies. Outside of work, we've all become very much dependent on technology, but the systems that we're using especially in maintenance and asset management, they haven't changed in almost a quarter of a century. The interfaces are the same, the ways of working are the same, the ways of putting data into the system have remained the same. And we feel that there's a huge dividend to be gained, just like we've had in our lives outside work, from deploying new technologies to data management, resource availability, compliance, tacit knowledge, and all that leads to this operational excellence piece where essentially your plant is running smoothly and it's producing. But it's really incumbent on companies to challenge, incentivize, and foster people to create a culture of innovation and technology adoption within their organizations.
Okay, thanks very much, Jer. We might just move on to the next piece. You might give us an overview of PlantQuest and your offerings.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I suppose just talking about the technology adoption piece that I was saying, about 6 years ago, having been faced with a lot of the challenges me and John just spoke about, we created PlantQuest. And one of the biggest technological advances that's happened in my generation is Google Maps. And we wanted to create a Google Maps for facilities, something that allowed you to navigate around facilities and to access information in a visual way, pretty much the same as we do outside work. There's a lot of systems that you have within a facility that have little to no visual context. I can draw an analogy with a list of 20 restaurants in a city you've never been before means nothing, but once you're viewing it in a map with all the other incumbent information that you can pull together on it, you're making decisions. So we want to do that with PlantQuest, where we're bringing maintenance information, asset information, building management information, energy information, all together harmonized in one place, and giving it to maintenance and asset management teams to allow them to execute and plan work a lot more efficiently. So essentially what we do is we bring visual context to a lot of the systems on your site that don't have it already. And it's a three-tiered approach, where we start with a context layer, which is a map or a visualization piece of your facility. On top of that, then you integrate your systems and you set your rules. And on top of that, you have very asset-focused workflows. It could be mobile asset tracking for your production. It could be asset management for maintenance or calibrations. It could be fire and ERT, emergency and alarm response. And these are solutions that are built on top of stuff like John says, like very strong master data information, and it's having that layer right, and also having technology contributing to improving that layer as well. So you get a virtuous circle. Yeah, and I think you'll see more in the demo, which we're about to run through here. So if we just move to the next slide, please. Oh, sorry, a key piece that we focus on obviously is integrations, and some of the key integration pieces that we work with obviously is bringing like systems like SAP, Maximo. We are technology agnostic, and bringing that information into our system using protocols such as UNS and REST API. From an automation perspective, it's integrating automation systems like your PLCs, your DCS systems, using protocols like MQTT and OPC UA. And then from an asset tracking and IoT perspective, it's bringing in your Wirepass and your Cisco DNA spaces, so you can visualize your IoT systems as well. And now we'll move into the demo. Thanks a million. Okay, everyone, just a quick whistle-stop tour of some of the PlantQuest functionality. It obviously goes a lot deeper, and there'll be more webinars in the future. And if you want to personalize them, feel free to reach out to us, obviously, as well. There's a few ways you can interact with the system. This is our demo system here. You can search for an asset using the search box. You can select a room and select video assets within the room, or you can use advanced filtering, which I'm showing you here. So the filters are fully customizable. In this case, it's building level, asset type, and drawing. It could be system, subsystem, use case, department. And I'll just search for a group of assets today. We'll say temperature transmitters. Hit go. You can see that I've selected that there are 7 assets in the facility that are temperature transmitters. I can zoom in here. You can see the pins come together and move apart depending on the level of zoom. You can see the asset tags. And on the left hand side here, you can see the list of the 7 assets. I can expand them. I can see asset information on the left here. Now, if we're pulling information from an automation system like a building management system, the live process variable is viewable in here as well. You can also view photographs of the asset, very useful if you're going out to see exactly where an asset is or what it looks like before you go out. You can also do stuff like build work packs. So if I want to build a work pack, I have a vendor coming to site. I might want to drop in a few of these assets into the work pack. We could just add them all to the work pack actually. So we've got a group of 7 temperature transmitters in this work pack, and I can save it for later, and I can show you our line walk feature. So temperatures or line walk save for later. Close that now. And then what you can also do is we have a layering functionality that allows you to view different attributes of the facility all at once. So it could be different area or room classifications, also be different groups of assets, again fully customizable. Okay, I'm just going to give you a quick run through our mobile application here. So here you can see we do single, multiple asset location, and we also do mechanical isolation, electrical isolation management. So if I select mobile asset location, so you can build a line walk or a group of assets that you wish to walk down. I'll just select an existing line walk. So what I'll do here is I'll look at one of the pre-existing line walks I defined. You can see here some of the line walks contain up to 106 items. I'll pick the temperature transmitter line walk that we defined in the desktop earlier. So I select that, I select navigate,
And what the system does is it brings me back to the map of my facility, and it tells me the information I need to know before I head out into the field. So with PlantQuest, the client can customize the system with various attributes for whatever room or area there is within the facility. So for this, you can see you need confined space training, permit to work, PPE, and hearing protection. So what you do is you define the start point for the line walk. I say PTW. So we say we're at the PTW office. The system then prompts me and says, do you want to navigate in the order that I built the line walk, or do you want us to optimize it for you? So I say yes to optimization. You see the order on the left-hand side change. And now you see you're going from the permit to work office to TT 30105. If I hit next, you can see it's going to 90102. Next, and as I'm doing this, you can imagine the amount of time that you're saving. Here, when the asset's in the same room, we don't draw a line. Once upon a time, you could have been walking down a system or a P&ID, and a lot of time be wasted, but you can see now the benefits of having this information right at your fingertips.
Sounds better.
Perfect. Thanks a million. Yeah, I suppose just to round off on that demo, essentially what it is, it's equipping you and your team with the tools to visually manage your assets. And there's three big wins here. It's making your team more efficient and you more efficient in your planning. One of our clients is saving thousands of hours in geo-optimizing their maintenance every year. Alarm response and mean time to repair, which is a key metric that people are chasing these days. It's how quickly from the generation of a work order can we get equipment back up and running, is a massive one. That obviously feeds into production and going production capacity. No time locating assets, and I suppose most importantly, what I was laboring earlier is taking control of your tacit knowledge. That's a huge benefit. It's making people important, but it's also taking the knowledge in-house, so it becomes the company's IP now. So when you lose somebody who's been there 20 years, the loss isn't felt as bad. And the final big benefit is that we see, and that our clients are saying, is the open API enables them to visualize multiple systems quickly, cheaply, and very, very efficiently using technologies such as REST API and unified namespace. I'll just hand over to John now, and he'll bring you through Nexa.
Thanks, Ger. Yeah, just a quick overview of the Nexa service offerings first and see how it all ties together. So we effectively have 6 service tracks, which you'll see in the next slide here. The fact that we're focusing very much on the digitalization of asset management data. 4 is where we really want to focus in the CMMS, or the computerized maintenance management system. So you're all probably familiar with that, but the likes of Infor, Hexagon, the likes of SAP PM, the likes of Maximo, Procal, others that are out in the industry. For example, we're deploying 7 different CMMS systems. We're completely system agnostic. But what this service track relies on in terms of CMMS migration, implementation, or even optimization is good data. So even though we have a lot of other services around calibration, optimization, maintenance and spares, and even quality compliance, CQV, reliability, that's work that we execute on a daily basis, but it all has one thing in common. It requires very, very good data in order to be successful. So on the next slide, what you'll see is something that we've created over the years. We started off in a very kind of niche space in the calibration optimization space, where we were looking at the data, how good the data was, how many calibrations were being done per year, the classifications of the assets as well. And it be expanded quite quickly, in fact, into CMMS deployment and delivery, which encompassed all the other service tracks that you see. This culminated really in an overall roadmap. Now, this roadmap is not perfect in terms of the sequencing of exactly how every project happens, but it'll give you a good idea of what's required. And for each node along this roadmap, this is all stuff that Nexa have, can, and will deliver in the future. Each one of these nodes, each one of these kind of signposts, milestones, whatever you want to call them, often cause a lot of issues because there's a handover of data, right? So whether it's the original speccing out of the equipment with the vendor to when the equipment lands on site to perform the initial risk assessments and building the initial master equipment list and instrument list, to when you start putting that information into the system or walking it down or building your calibration and maintenance plans or building out your spare parts, when you start executing your CQV activities or doing your initial calibrations, every single one of these points has a data element to it. And what we've seen historically is that by the time it comes ready for upload, where we're collating all of the data, it's about 60% accurate. Now that causes a huge amount of churn because when we get to the last stage and we're trying to upload data and we are in effect the data stewards and we're saying that the data isn't of sufficient quality to be uploaded to the system, well, now the client has to go and release more funds to re-execute walkdowns or re-execute data builds if they weren't done correctly in the first place. Also, what we've seen is, the handover from vendor to vendor to vendor. You could have 6, 7, 8, up to 12 vendors throughout this life cycle process. And when it's mercenarial in nature, or when the vendor executes their scope of work and they have no responsibility for the actual end product, and they've left for the next project, you'll find that it's very hard to keep accountability. So what we try to build here is as much of the engineering asset management scope under one umbrella, where we can control as early as equipment spec all the way through this process until it's operationally ready for handover, and even after it's released for use, that we can be the data stewards for the client, because we've seen cases whereby they've released the system to the general population, let's call it, and all of a sudden the data quality plummets because they've allowed too much access. So on some sites, for example, we are now controlling the addition, modification, or retirement of all the asset data to a centralized location in order to keep that level of quality, because that client in particular has realized how important it is to have the highest quality of data available, and that tracks all the way to the decommissioning of equipment. Outside of the efficiencies and cost effectiveness of all of this, even from a quality and compliance perspective, being able to be audit ready at any time, being able to stand over your data, being able to look for a spare part and know it's the right one, all of these things have a massive impact on the operational effectiveness and efficiency of any organization.
That's great, John, thanks. We might discuss some of the benefits of the NS3 model.
Yeah, so look, accountability is the one thing. I've seen it myself on countless number of projects. Effectively, you're looking for the person who executed some part of the scope of work earlier on in the project. They're gone, they're nowhere to be found, they've moved abroad, or they've left the company that they were originally with, which causes a lot of issues, having to do a lot of rework. Having that risk management process being involved very early in the process so you can kind of control, I would say there's typically in life sciences an over-conservative approach to how assets are risk assessed and classified, and having somebody like ourselves or anybody else in this space who has the experience in at the earliest stage, helping guide the client to the correct classifications, has a massive knock-on impact when you go live. Our average on a capital project is about 20% critical assets, whereas we've seen sites where it's anywhere from 75 almost to 100% in some cases, which causes huge regulatory compliance issues when things start to go wrong, which they inevitably will. Equipment will break down, and if it's not classified correctly, there's major issues. So there's cost avoidance in that regard, but there's also major cost savings by setting up intervals that are appropriate based on historical performance, based on data across multiple sites, or even the industry. And having that level of quality control and management from start to finish just improves the overall quality and delivery of the project from start to finish. And we don't have that situation of rework, which I talked about. Having one party who's effectively accountable for the master data strategy on the client side, almost like a client's rep, helps to eliminate rework. You have one neck to grab, you have one point of accountability, one point of contact. So if it's 60% accurate, it's us that are holding the can for that, and it's us who will be responsible for rework. Now that doesn't happen, but it doesn't happen because we can control it.
Brilliant, thanks. Might ask you guys to discuss the benefits then of digitizing EAM workflows.
Yeah, I'll start there, but just to speak to what John was speaking about there. Like, we deploy a solution that leverages asset management system information, and easiest deployment we've ever done is after Nexa have been managing the master data in a project. And when you do have the correct master data, it does open up the gates to a lot of new and time-saving products and innovations that you can do with your data once it reaches a certain quality threshold. And that's something that I think everybody should aspire to. Just to speak about the benefits of digitizing asset management workflows. 20 years ago, we had so many workflows in our lives that don't exist anymore. They've been engineered out and innovated out. And as I said previously, a lot of our technological advancements are left at the gate when we go into work these days. So having a connected worker and to deliver operational efficiency effortlessly, much like the innovations that we have in our lives outside work happen effortlessly now or are unseen. There's a huge bonus to be gotten there by bringing more connectivity into workers, giving them quality data, through projects like what John executes, and through technological advancements like what we do, and other companies in our space as well. People coming into our workforce these days, they're digital natives. They were born 20, 25 years ago, and they have a certain expectation, and they work better when they're digitally enabled. And it's super critical to give them the same experience inside work that they have outside work. Because if they don't, there's other industries that are actually ahead of us at the moment in terms of digital enablement and connected worker, and they're feeling the operational efficiency benefits that we should be feeling more of, in my opinion. John, I'll just hand over to you there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've put that extremely well. Like the people that are digitally enabled outside of work, it's a different generation. That I remember having my first phone being a Nokia 3210 or something like that back in the day, right? And the most technology you had was playing Snake, right? It's a very different world that we're in right now, and having that as a kind of a lighthouse for us in terms of where we're going to go next is very important. But in order for it to be digitally enabled, you have to have solid data integrity. And I don't mean data integrity as in the buzzword that kind of went off the charts in the last couple of years. Like, data integrity is a very simple concept. Being able to stand over the validity of the data and the integrity of the data that you have in your systems, right? And it's not just about putting in data for data's sake. Having the right data enables you to make the right decisions. And making the right decisions could mean, instead of the legacy approach of let's just calibrate and maintain everything on a 3 or 6 month basis and then we won't miss anything, rather than doing that, putting your risk and rigor towards what's actually critical, like looking at your most critical assets, studying the performance of them over time, realizing that, okay, initially we did this every 6 months, but it hasn't failed in 4 or 5 years. Let's push this out, or let's look at the criticality. In fact, we don't have to calibrate or maintain this equipment at all, and we can save ourselves a lot of money. So the data integrity piece, it actually is a precursor to cost reduction and operational efficiencies. And you can still save money and be extremely compliant. In fact, the FDA are looking for where you have properly assessed risk and applied the rigor to the most critical assets. If you don't have it, you're still technically compliant, but it's not necessarily the best engineering practice. So it's not just a PlantQuest thing or a Nexa thing or a one client thing. This is an industry-wide thing where it's the expectation now to apply the risk and rigor to the most critical assets. And the added benefit is that you're going to save money and increase efficiencies massively across your organization.
That's brilliant. Thanks, guys. John, we have a Nexa impact story there. I might ask you to run through it for us.
Yeah, so this is actually a nice segue into talking about, a company that really took the right approach when looking at how to properly manage the implementation of a digital system. So we were working with one of the largest multi-product facilities in the USA and had an implementation of the CMMS. So they chose to implement a system to replace their legacy paper-based process. As part of that, they also realized that the data in the current system wasn't really up to scratch. And instead of just looking at the quality of the data, and by that I mean how much was populated, they also wanted to look at things like our calibration intervals. Like, how often are we calibrating things? Is that correct? Is the equipment that we have in the system actually still out there? This system is open, this site is operational a long time. So we want to make sure that what we have in the system is reflective of what's in the field. We also want to look at our classifications, make sure our criticalities are matching, make sure our hierarchy is correct. So this wasn't an exercise of moving data from A to B. This was an exercise of taking 100,000 plus assets, physically verifying them in the field with all their nameplate data, the building, the location, the room, every piece of information that was deemed critical on an ongoing basis, and applying the best practices to that. Now, the output of that is pretty phenomenal. I mean, the size of the site you've seen, looking at a reduction of around 25% of their tasks per year, an estimated $2 million return on investment, both cost avoidance and direct cost savings. So if you look at, for example, cost avoidance elements, you will have 65% critical instruments, which means 6.5 out of every 10 of those instruments that fail will have to go through a full investigation process, which can cost anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000 a piece, if not more. So reducing that classification by almost half, reduced by 30%, means that those 30% we produced are no longer subject to those investigation processes. And it's a massive cost avoidance and efficiency improvement as well, because you don't have all the external stakeholders you would have previously had because of an incorrect criticality. So after we went live, and I've kind of touched on this already, we were trusted so much with the master data and our approach to the management of master data that we were asked to be retained and still manage the master data for everything that went into the system, every modification request, and everything that was retired from the system. And we're still doing that across not just this site, but multiple sites today. So it's become a long-term, very beneficial mutual partnership with that client. And we're working not just on their operational side now, but on capital projects to help build that master data as well.
That's brilliant, John. Thanks very much. Ger, we'll get you to go through one of your PlantQuest impact stories.
Yeah, we're kind of a bit over time now, so I'll do this quickly enough. Yeah, I suppose this is the first facility in a global rollout with a large pharma player. It's a large site in Ireland. We rolled out in 2021. There was two focuses really on this digitization. So it was 12 buildings, 1,700 rooms, and there was a big focus on mobile production assets, stuff that moves, and also on alarms and improving alarm response time from emergency response and also production alarms as well. So we digitized 9,000 emergency response and production alarms, and we had a 73% reduction in alarm response times due to the implementation of PlantQuest and building workflows around navigation and optimizing of addressing alarms. On the back of that, there was, before the deployment of the system, there was 2 or 3 evacuations or production stoppages every month. And since 2021, there's been none. So you can imagine the impact of this. Our own research has found that every minute of downtime to a facility this size is worth $20,000. So any stoppage is really critical. And the other aspect then was the optimization of production, mobile production equipment, mobile vessels, etc. And due to the ability to be able to reduce investigations into production vessels, there was 135,000 euros a year saved. But most importantly, the optimization of the positioning of these vessels equated to 37 extra batches a year. So the plant actually put out 37 extra batches per year, which is equivalent to 860,000 euros of a win from this deployment for this organization, which was massive. Just finally, before we open up to Q&A, we have a couple of webinars coming up in the next few months. So early April, we have mobile asset tracking. So something that I was just speaking about from production. So we're focusing specifically on single-use equipment. We're looking at totes, single-use mixers, mag mixers, and stuff like peristaltic pumps. And another big use case that we've been drawn into at the moment is tracking of calibration equipment. John, I'm sure you and your team know the challenge of what happens when you lose a piece of calibration equipment. So it's something that our customers are really screaming for, and it's something we're happy to talk about. Early May, we're looking at unified namespace. It's my own pet project. It's something that we're really excited about. We're working with Skellig Automation there. We're doing a full UNS integration into PlantQuest. Another one we might actually be doing this with John as well is field data collection and validation, and it's how to collect data with quality and integrity in the field for brownfield sites. Later in the summer, we'll be working with our partners, IDA, looking at visualizing completion and turnover data from a construction and commissioning perspective. And finally, towards the end of the summer, it'll be our PlantQuest SDK, and it's how you can embed our mapping technology and our systems into your existing systems within your facility. Thanks a million.
That's brilliant, guys. Thanks very much. Okay, we have a number of questions in the comments, and if anybody else has further questions, they can drop them into the comments there. Just conscious on time, so we'll try and work through a few of them here now. So just to throw one out there, what are we seeing at the moment in relation to AI in the industry?
Yeah, just take that one quickly, Mark. Like, so I just came back from a seminar in December, maintenance conference, the International Maintenance Conference, and there was a lot of talk about AI. I would say that some of it was truly AI, right? And a lot of it was the opportunity to use the phrase AI to put a bit of showbiz on your presentation, right? So I would just say that there is absolutely massive opportunities, particularly in the data space, right, for how we build, collect, and utilize the data that we have, right? There's no doubt about that. I just think it might be a little bit early in terms of how well it's being thought through, particularly for the life science industry. You know, if you're manipulating data, for example, you have to be very, very conscious of that. The process by which that data is manipulated and used is fully validated and vetted, because if it's not, you open yourself up to, again, data integrity questions, right? Also, the ability to reproduce the same information. So if I'm depending on AI to go out and execute a maintenance activity or a calibration activity, and instead of following a procedure or a process, I'm asking the AI solution, whatever it is, what I should do, and it doesn't produce the same answer or produces different answers for different people, well then how do I prove the consistent approach to how I execute my calibration and maintenance activities? So I would say absolutely huge potential, but as far as our industry in terms of what we're doing, there's a bit more work to be done.
Brilliant, thanks, John. There might be one here for you. Can you locate mobile assets, and how does it differ from fixed assets?
Yeah, I suppose obviously the fixed assets is all about pulling the asset location from a 3D model, a CAD drawing, a PDF drawing, and we've very advanced workflows that allows us to integrate with these various different systems. And in a lot of cases, you know, facilities don't know where their assets are, so we have a field survey tool, which I alluded to previously, that allows you or your team or us to actually build out that population as they go through about their daily work in the facility. The mobile assets there's two ways we can do it. We can leverage your existing Wi-Fi system, which provides pretty good results, or we can deploy our own beacon-based system using a protocol called Wirepass. And I think there's someone in the comments there has asked about calibration equipment, so I'll structure my answer around the tracking of calibration equipment. So we have a whole range of asset tracking tags. This is one here, weighs about 17 grams, and you can attach this to any piece of, if we take calibration equipment, like a Druck or like a Fluke or like a BMX, and essentially what that does is it pings the mesh network that we deploy within the organization, and you know, within our system you can view the location of all of your calibration equipment at any time. You can build rules, you can build geofences, so you know when it's been taken out, who has it. All that is available for you. The Wirepass system itself is very efficient. The beacons have a 9-year battery in them. The tags themselves are sub €30, $40, and you can really have the system up and running in a matter of 3 or 4 weeks. Very, very, very efficient way of tracking your equipment, especially for high value equipment and high hassle equipment like calibration equipment, stuff that you really can't afford to lose, especially with batch records and everything like that.
Brilliant, thanks, Ger. Number of questions here. I'm not sure, I'm just conscious of time. We might go for 1 or 2 more. Our site is large and complex, and in the past, when looking at adopting digital twins, it wasn't feasible due to cost and our site's constraints. Will this be the same?
I think this is aimed at me, John, so I'll take this.
Yeah.
No is the short answer. I think a lot of digital twin is focused on the pizzazz and the visual, and not the and it's the form, it's the form over factor. And what we do is we think it's the 80-20 rule, so you can get 80% of the value for 20% of the cost and effort. If you make a change to your site, you're moving a wall or something, then we need to draw another line. And that's something that we include in our support throughout the year. Generally, with a client, we'll speak to them 3 or 4 times a year. They'll tell us any changes they've made, and we'll change it. If you have an advanced 3D model of a brownfield site, if you can actually manage to get one done, as soon as you make that model, it is invalid, because your site is changing all the time. And the cost of actually managing an extensive 3D model for a site is prohibitive. I've seen models for sites that have been built in the last year, and they're a nightmare to manage and maintain. So from an asset management, maintenance, and automation perspective, we feel that a solution like ours is very low maintenance compared to some of the other solutions out there.
Brilliant, Jack. Thanks very much. We've a number of questions there. I'm just very conscious that we've gone over 10 minutes, and we might just wrap up there. There'll be a record.
I think we've got another. I think I've got another 5 or 10 minutes here. I think as long as people are on, I think we'll probably keep going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. There's one there. So guys, for integration, do you see customers keeping on top of this when separate integrated software platforms go through minor or major updates?
Can you repeat that?
For integration, do you see customers keeping on top of this when separate integrated software platforms go through minor or major updates?
It's a very good question, and essentially what we do is we add assets to our system. I need to get this right now because my software guys will kill me. And when an asset's added to our system, we take the asset ID and we associate it to a GUID. So we give it its own unique identifier. So you can associate asset IDs from other systems with our system, because what you see, and it's something that John spoke about, is from a data integrity perspective, you could have an asset existing in 3 or 4 different systems, but the asset ID will actually be different in very slight ways. So when you have an asset changing in let's say a child system, so long as the association is made in our system, any changes that are made in that system will percolate through to our own system. It's quite difficult to explain it without a diagram, but whoever's asked that question, if you give me a shout, I should be able to get it across to you visually. But a short answer is any changes that are made in an integrated system will percolate through to our own system.
Okay, that's brilliant, Chair. Guys, unless you have anything else that you want to go through there, there's a number. I'm just conscious of the time. The webinar will be available, our recording, on both companies' PlantQuest and NEXA LinkedIn pages. If there's any further questions, you can reach out to Ger, John, or myself directly via email. You can have a look on our websites and find us that way. Any of the outstanding questions, we'll come back to you directly ourselves. On behalf of us all, we'd like to thank, we've had a fantastic number attending today. We hope you found the session very beneficial, and we'll get back to everybody in due course. So once again, thanks very much for attending, and hopefully we'll run another one of these in the near future and we'll get a similar attendance again.
Thanks all.
Thanks all.